The rooftop restaurant shimmered with city lights and the low hum of expensive conversation. Crystal glasses sparkled under chandeliers, and every laugh sounded rehearsed. At the center of it all sat Julian Marchand, the famous French businessman, whose arrogance filled the room faster than the champagne he loved, being admired, feared, respected, and never questioned. Near his table, a young waitress named Claire balanced a tray with quiet confidence. Her uniform simple, her hair neatly tied, she moved gracefully but avoided unnecessary attention. When she reached Julian's table, he didn't even glance up, his voice, smooth and lazy in French. Apporte-moi le vin, et fais vite, je n'ai pas toute la nuit. Bring me the wine, and hurry. I don't have all night. His friends chuckled, nodding at his effortless authority. Claire blinked, her hands tightening on the tray. She set down the glasses gently, then looked at him and replied in fluent French, her accent crisp. Excusez-moi, monsieur, mais votre phrase est incorrecte, c'est apportez-moi le vin, not apporte-moi le vin, pardon, monsieur. But your sentence is incorrect. It's apportez-moi le vin, not apporte-moi le vin. The laughter stopped instantly. One of his friends coughed awkwardly. Another tried to hide a grin. Julian froze, caught between shock and embarrassment. He had just been corrected by a waitress in his own language. She continued politely, I learned French from my grandmother. She would be very disappointed if I didn't use it properly. Julian's mouth opened, but no words came out. Claire smiled politely. I'll bring your wine now, sir, and walked away, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than any insult she could have said. He stared after her, his pride stinging, and yet his curiosity burning louder than his ego. Who was this woman who had just embarrassed him with nothing but elegance? The rest of the dinner felt longer than any business meeting Julian had ever endured. Every time someone spoke, he barely listened. His mind kept drifting back to the waitress who had corrected him so effortlessly, the way she had said the words, the confidence in her tone, and how she didn't flinch, even when laughter stopped around her when she returned with the wine. He watched her carefully, noticing the calm grace in her movements, the quiet control she carried despite being surrounded by power and arrogance. When she leaned slightly to pour his glass, he finally spoke, his voice lower this time. You speak French perfectly, she smiled faintly. Thank you, sir. My grandmother was a language professor in Lyon. Julian blinked. Lyon, you're French? She nodded. Half French, half British. My family moved here when I was young. His tone softened. So you're working here to practice humility. She smiled. Not at all, to pay for my university. He tilted his head, curious. University? What are you studying? Linguistics. Her answer caught him off guard again, the same word that had defined his career now spoken by someone who lived a life far from luxury before he could respond. His business partner leaned over, smirking. Seems you've met your match, Julian. He forced a tight smile, but deep down, he knew the man was right. After dinner ended, Julian lingered near the exit, watching Claire finish her shift. When she stepped outside to the back alley for a breath of air, he followed, keeping a respectful distance. She turned, noticing him immediately, her brow furrowing slightly. Are you following me, sir? He raised, his hands slightly. No, just curious, she sighed. Well, curiosity is fine as long as it doesn't cost me my job, he smiled. It won't. I just wanted to say you were right about the grammar. She raised an eyebrow. Really? He nodded, embarrassed. I've spoken French since childhood and no one has ever corrected me. She looked amused. Maybe no one dared, he smiled, maybe not. She looked at him carefully, her tone gentle but honest. Pride is a dangerous teacher, sir. It makes people stop learning. He froze, the truth of her words hitting deeper than he expected. He said softly, Maybe that's why I needed to meet you. She smiled faintly. Or maybe you just needed someone to remind you what language is really for. He frowned. And what's that? She looked up, at him with calm certainty, to connect, not to command. The next morning, Julian sat in his office overlooking the city, but his mind wasn't on the contracts scattered across his desk. Instead, he kept replaying her words in his head. Language is to connect, not to command, for years. He had used words as weapons, tools to negotiate, to intimidate, to win. But now one simple correction from a waitress had exposed how empty that power really was. He picked up his phone and called the restaurant's manager. "I need to speak to one of your waitresses. Her name is Claire." The manager sounded nervous. "Is there a problem, sir?" Julian smiled faintly. "No. A compliment, she deserves one." That evening, when Claire arrived for her shift, she was surprised to find him already sitting at the same table, this time alone, dressed simply, no entourage, no arrogance, just calm. She approached carefully. "Sir, if this is about yesterday," he interrupted quietly. "It is, but not for the reason. You think, please sit for—" A moment she hesitated, then slowly pulled out a chair. He leaned forward. "I've been thinking about what you said about connection." She smiled a little. "I didn't mean to offend you." He shook his head. "You didn't offend me. You educated me." His tone softened. "I spent years mastering languages to sound superior, but not once did I try to understand the people speaking them." She met his gaze, searching for the man she'd seen the night before. Maybe for the first time. He looked human. He continued, "I found out you're studying linguistics at the university. Tell me, what do you plan to do?" After she said softly, "I want to teach underprivileged kids how to communicate across cultures. Language gives people confidence, and that can change their future." He smiled quietly. "You speak like someone who already has." She shook her head. "Not yet. But maybe one day." Julian reached into his briefcase and placed a white envelope on the table. She frowned. "What's that?" he said. "A scholarship from my foundation. Enough to cover your remaining semesters." She blinked, stunned. "I can't accept this," he smiled. "You can, and you should consider it a thank you for reminding me what words are meant to do," she whispered. "But why me?" he said simply. "Because you spoke, when everyone else stayed silent." Weeks passed, and the restaurant soon buzzed with a quiet legend about the billionaire who had once mocked a waitress only to end up funding her education. But for Julian, it wasn't about image anymore. It was about meaning. He began visiting the university, where Claire studied, sitting quietly at the back of her language seminars, listening to professors speak about communication culture and empathy. For the first time in years, he wasn't the one teaching. He was learning. Claire worked part-time at his company, now helping develop international communication programs. Her insight changed everything. Meetings once filled with ego now felt alive with curiosity one afternoon as they reviewed translations. "For a new project," Julian smiled. "You know, I've been correcting my staff's French lately." She laughed lightly. "And are you finally getting it right?" He grinned. "Not always, but I'm trying." She tilted her head. "That's progress, not perfection." That evening at a charity gala, he was invited to speak in front of ambassadors and investors, but when he took the stage, he didn't give the speech his assistant had written. Instead, he told the story of a girl who reminded him that words only matter when they carry respect. He ended his talk in perfect French, saying, "La langue du cœur est la seule qu'on n'oublie jamais." The language of the heart is the only one we never forget. The audience rose to their feet, clapping loudly, while Claire watched from the side, tears glimmering in her eyes. After the event, Julian walked to her, smiling. "I hope I didn't butcher the grammar," she laughed softly. "Not this time, sir." He looked at her warmly. "Then I finally passed your class." She shook her head. "No, you started listening, and that's what makes you fluent." They stood on the balcony overlooking the city that night, the air filled with quiet peace, his voice gentle. "You know, you changed more than my French, Claire. You changed the way I speak." To the world, she smiled back. "Maybe the world just needed you to speak like a human again." He laughed softly. "Maybe you were the only one brave enough to make me." And when she turned to leave, he said quietly in flawless French, "Merci de m'avoir appris la langue du cœur." Thank you for teaching me the language of the heart. If this story made you smile, share it with someone who needs a reminder that accidents can turn into beautiful beginnings.